guys, welcome back to the Corrective Culture podcast. Today we have Chelsea Kundalini. Welcome on board.
Thank you so much, guys. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, stoked to have you on. So I've kind of followed your journey, I guess, over the last couple of years, knowing you through a friend, Rachel. And it's been amazing actually to see your transformation into breathwork and I would say like a spiritual teacher almost, you know? And yeah, it's been awesome.
I don't think anyone's ever called me a spiritual teacher before, but I'm going to go with that. Thank you so much. I mean, thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah. Well, we're all kind of teaching one another, you know, like we're all, some people have more energy than others and we're always draining someone or we're giving energy. I feel like you're more of an energy giver.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have a lot of energy inside of me and a lot that I want to share and use my voice for. And yeah, it's interesting that you have watched my journey because it's funny. I never think about that. Like I never think about social media of like having people that have like come along for the ride because yeah, when I think about my social media and everything that I share on there, I mean, it's been a wild journey from being a sex worker and like completely face covered to now like helping women and like women's embodiment trauma and like all the Kundalini work that I do. So yeah,
Fucking
tell me what
awesome.
you've
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I saw it and I have seen that transformation. I didn't know you didn't used to show your face though. Because I've only known you since you showed your face, but I really
Yeah, so I think it would have been, that probably would have been going back about 4 years or so or something like that. So I used to only have that Instagram account purely for sex work. So it
Okay.
is completely transformed a lot in many different ways. And when I first started out, it was just purely like an advertising platform. And I just knew that there was a lot more waiting for me that I wanted to share with the world.
Yeah, that's amazing. How'd you get into it? Like we recently had Juliet Allen on and she's like, we asked her, how did she get into it? And what did she say? She's like,
she just goes, I love sex.
Yeah. I love sex. And
then she was like, I was going to do that. And then someone's like, oh, you can get into sexology and stuff. And that was her passion. And she's very outspoken. And that's what like,
it's powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's like when you're not in the shadows at all. And then when you speak it, you're looking powerful almost because you just don't give a fuck, you know? And that's respectable, I feel like. So,
and it's liberating. It's so liberating to other women out there who have such a strong shadow that can't let that out. You know what I mean? Because like we all have desires and things that we kind of hide. And it's like when you can integrate that and live fully and be like, this is me. How freeing is that?
Very. Actually, it makes me emotional hearing men speak like this, to be honest. I feel like even though it's beautiful and liberating to be who I am today, before that, it wasn't just as simple as like, I love sex and like, let's go for it.
Yeah.
It has been probably like one of the most painful, liberating, beautiful journeys of my life to come home to myself, and inspire other women to do the same. But simultaneously, you know, like I'm a human being. And like you said, in regards to shadows, I have my own. And I have so much, you know, I had so much around worthiness and love and what it means to be sexual and sensual and free and liberated, and how, you know, women receive that, and the judgment that I've received, you know, not only from society, but you know, my family and the ways in which they perceive me. Like, lucky I come from quite a accepting family, but also a family with a lot of trauma. So women with a lot of trauma and a lot of trauma with men. So me being in this, you know, because I'm not a sex worker anymore, I'm completely out of the industry now, but as of, you know, the start of this year, but yeah, it's been actually incredibly challenging in personal relationships and how I'm perceived in those as well, and the comparison of, you know, what it is to be like a sex worker that had fucked so many different men, and what that feels like for a man to be with a woman like me when they have their own conditioning, and like it's so complex. And it's so challenging to be in this place, but I also know that I have to be. Because of the culture that we currently exist in, you know, like this body count culture and this like patriarchal conditioning that we sit in, and it's still so deeply rooted in all of us, including women, not just men. And so I have like a contract, you know, that I have to stay in this place of speaking to sex and speaking to shadow and speaking to liberation and healthy, you know, making our shadows healthy. So we're not going out and causing violence against women and men and treating human beings like, you know, sexual objects, like coming back into our hearts, understanding our desires, making them healthy, not shaming people for watching porn or having, you know, fucking, I don't know, fantasies where they want to hurt and harm, because the more that we reject those parts of ourselves, the more we, you know, we see people in fucking jail and in mental institutions and in all of these places, because something's happened to these people. Something's happened to us where we've just missed the mark slightly. We haven't been educated. We don't understand our sexuality and what it's here to teach us. And when we can tap into our sex and use our sex for magnificent and creation and creativity, you know, our lives change so much, but we still have to go into the shadows first.
Yeah, I wonder where because there's obviously a lot of like do you know the book The Body Keeps the Score?
Yeah.
And I remember Paul was talking about it, like, you know, there'll be sexual shame from a religion, from even like basic shit, from like no sex before marriage and stuff. That's so fucking unnatural, right? As a young man and a young woman, and how like it can develop as like breast cancer and things like that. And it's crazy. I've asked the few people I know that have had breast cancer, that was in their story. From a religious parent, like parents and whatnot.
Yeah, Paul said the same thing.
Subtle, the subtle, like, this is a story, right? It's a fucking story they're telling themselves. But like, it's crazy how it manifests in the tissue and all this stuff. And how when you speak about it, there's so many girls that would be feeling that. And when we speak about it with guys, like, and how you were talking about, like, just, I was talking with a friend recently, and she was like, have you ever like sat down with your sexual partner and just spoken about like the things you want, the things you don't like, the things you do like and all that sort of stuff? And I reflected on that, and I was like, I don't think I have, hey. But it's an awareness now that I'll take into my next relationship, because you can have it all.
Yeah, for sure.
and it's like when you voice it, fuck, there's nothing festering over time.
Yeah, it goes so deep. I'm sure you know, it's like, you know, we can drop into whatever archetype we want.
Yeah.
And it's so true. But like, we have to be able to have those conversations, but we also have to be able to hold each other when, you know, the jealousy comes up, and when the comparison or the whatever it is that's coming up, that's so uncomfortable. So we have to have a certain level of awareness and consciousness going into those conversations too, to be able to move through to the other side, like, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and they're the hard conversations, like the
hard.
hard.
And it's not normally a conversation, right? It's
no, it's
conversations and making sure each other feel so safe in it.
Yeah, and it's many conversations, and it's also like, fuck, like sometimes for men and women, it can be really like, oh, I don't want to talk right now, you know. And sometimes you just have to have a break and just be like, pull yourself out for a few days and do some meditation and ground yourself again, do some breath work, and then come back in with a fresh, okay, this is how I'm feeling, you know? And there's a book called Nonviolent Communication that I'm reading at the moment, and it's fucking amazing for that kind of stuff, to be able to move through these like deeper parts of ourselves with our partners and grow from it, because that's what we're here for. We're here to, we have a partner, if we choose them and they choose us, we're here to grow with them, unless you're growing apart, which you shouldn't be with them. So
Yeah, it's other.
How about you guys? Like, what about your sexuality and desires? Like, I'm actually so curious to hear, even though this is your podcast.
Yeah.
I feel like your viewers.
Yeah.
Well, hear about this.
All right, mum, tune out. Yeah, that's a good question. Hey, it's like I'm very much attracted to a huge polarity in the masculine feminine dynamic, right? I feel like I'll attract more feminine girls, and I love that. I like innocence, but not for me. You know what I mean? Like, how can I describe that better? Like, sort of like, I like just like, for me, health is such a big core value. Like, health. If they're not healthy, I'm not attracted to them. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's primal though, isn't it? It's like a genetic thing. Like, you're smelling them. If they smell healthy, if they taste, like, that's just naturally what comes, right? For most men and women.
For sure.
I caught up with this chick like ages ago, and it was just a coffee, just to meet her, right? And then she was telling me about how, I just like love Zinger boxes, and I can't like. And I was
He's
thinking,
like, what? What did she say?
She loves like Zinger boxes from KFC and shit. And I remember at the time thinking, this is the last time I'll have it. Like, I still spent time with him like that.
Done.
Yeah, but I was like, that was such, because she knew, she knows my vibe, you know, like, fuck.
Yeah.
But what do you desire?
Actually, I'm same. Yeah.
Yeah. What do I desire?
Yeah, what do you desire in a woman? Like, what do you desire? What are your desires, like, sexually with a woman?
Yeah, let's get juicy. No shame here. There is no shame. Everything.
I like, that strong dynamic. I like, it's weird sort of saying this on the potty, like, like, sort of submissive energy. I like submissive energy, and I like wanting to provide. Like, my inner, I want to provide and create her to be in a full feminine energy so that she can take the stress away at the end of the day.
What does providing mean for you?
Providing means for me, like, mentally being not unpredictable, like, just being solid in my emotions, and money. Yeah. Like, so she doesn't have to work unless she wants to work. Right. But, I want to do that. Do you feel
pressure as a man though? Like, within that, is there a deep pressure for you, or does that feel just naturally what comes for you?
It's a good pressure. It's a good pressure. It's a pressure that makes me work. And I like that pressure, because it's not only for her, that's for me too, you know? Like, if I get that pressure, I don't feel like a deep pressure. Because in my head it's already done. Like, I don't know. It's like I'm certain of it. So it's, you know what I mean? The feeling is like, do I have to, like, is it going to happen? Or in my head, nah, it's going to happen. It's happened. It's already happened. So
I wonder what that is. It's like innate in us, like, to provide. I think maybe because it's through evolution we've had to provide.
Yeah, I think it's natural.
Yeah, it's like it feels so right for some reason to, and that would have been hunting and gathering back in the day.
Yeah.
Now it's money, but like, yeah, it does feel kind of.
Yeah, and provide an exciting life. So
I don't think all men are like that though.
No,
like from what I've seen, I think when you're naturally a masculine essence man and you've faced off with certain parts of yourself, because I think for a lot of men, like, how old are you guys?
I'm 34.
I'm 31.
Okay, yeah. So I feel like as you step more into that, you step more into like your masculine energy. Totally. And obviously you guys are doing the work, you're looking at your shadows, you're looking at all these parts of yourself. But I think that there is, for some men, there's shame around that they are unable to provide or not in that part yet. Like, it's interesting. And also I think the more masculine you are, the more you want to be in that, but the less, like, when there's less polarity, when a woman is more probably in her masculine, there's like that sort of clashing within that energy. But then there's also like a fizzling out within the dynamic, within the sexual polarity and attraction to one another as well.
Yeah, it's so hard sometimes, because it can be like, it is hard to provide, and, you know, everything's going up, and it's like, because a lot of men do kill themselves because they can't provide.
Yeah, like,
which is gnarly, because
there's a lot of pressure on that.
Yeah, you get trapped into, you know, a mortgage and a house and a car, and then providing for your family. And when you can't do that, it feels like your purpose. If that's what your purpose is, then you're not fulfilling that purpose, and life becomes kind of bleak.
Yeah, and they fill it with tension relieving activities.
Yeah,
whether that be the pub, gambling, fucking. Whatever, all these things, it doesn't make you feel good. It's short-term happiness for like, and then you go home like, oh God, like, you know, I've done fuck all.
I was thinking this the other day, like, everything that I've bought that's been big, like, I've bought, and then I have this moment after it where I'm like, I feel a little empty. Like, it doesn't matter how flashy it is or whatever, like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's like, I thought that was going to make me happy, but my soul is still not fulfilled, you know?
And man, actually for that same question, what's your sexual desires?
Sexual desires? I don't know.
I don't know if you finished completely.
Yeah. Pass it over.
Like, okay, like, are we talking like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
Are we talking like, are we talking about details or like energy? Like, okay.
I feel like
like the energetic. So like, obviously you like to be more dominant.
Yeah. I like passion. I like, if we're going to break that down, I like rough, but in a passionate way. Not in like a empty, I'm not into empty sex anymore. I was when I was younger. I'm not. I still wanna have a connection to the person and conversation even, and just like you want to be around them. Like that's what I mean, right? But when I was younger as a man, back in the culture, it's like sex equals love in some sense, right? But now that we have so much else going on, I don't need that love from a girl I don't know through sexual experiences, but I still want sex because we still got our needs. So yeah, I like the feminine, strong dynamic, and I like it rougher. I like that with a bit like fire and passion and I never want to get bored, you know?
Yeah.
So you like a woman to completely surrender to you.
Yeah.
And you can hold her, because the reason why I ask is it's interesting because I feel like maybe your viewers would like this. So in regards to like sexual shadow, and a lot that comes up for a lot of men is like they want to, and for women. So there's like certain fantasies that we can have around like rape and being taken, and the desire to be dominated for women. And for men, it's the desire to like essentially rape, but it's not actually rape. It's a desire to be so deeply in their masculine that they want to ravish. It's the fine line between rape and ravish. And when a man can completely take his woman or his lover or whatever it is, you know, whoever that person is, but they're so deeply in their masculine that then that woman can completely surrender in safety to her partner. And you can play in the shadows with that when you have communication and you have safety within all of that. And it's just interesting what I hear from you, because there's such a desire for you to be so deeply in that role, in that complete masculine essence. And yeah, I mean, I just see it a lot in these dynamics. So yeah, it's just interesting hearing you explain what your desires are. It's super interesting.
It's funny how when you were mentioning that before, when I was locked up, I saw guys go in, right? And they were doing like 3 months, like fuck all time, and having a girlfriend, and they were like getting with guys, like getting headed in the showers and shit. From this, I still remember the guy's name. His name's Rob. There were so many Robs in there, dude. It's so weird. But and this guy had a chick on the outside. I was doing 3 months, and he was getting head in the shower, and he made salary. So I was like, oh, this guy almost is using this like area to get his like actual sexual needs out. And this is a good experience. You don't just turn gay in jail, right?
No.
Like I remember being in there thinking I could do 20 years and none of these guys, I'm not going to touch no man. Like wouldn't even cross my mind, because it's just unnecessary. But when they are doing it, it's in them already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they're letting it out in there, you know?
Totally.
And it wasn't like rape or nothing. There was always some gay guy in each unit that, you know, he was always
so it was a gay, like an outwardly gay guy, and giving to
anyone,
like a straight man.
And the cool thing was, it was almost more progressive in there. No one gave a fuck if you were gay. You're still one of the boys. You still sit at the table. You still like. It was weird, eh? It was like all these hard dudes, killers, you know, literally murderers, and it doesn't matter if you're gay, you're still one of the boys. Like it's.
Fuck, that's so interesting, because like I would have always thought, because of what we see like on the outside of like the homophobia within men that do generally have homophobic tendencies within inside of them, they are just so hateful to the gay community. So it's really interesting hearing that they're just one of the boys in jail.
Yeah, it was like that, hey? And like, they'd be like cutting your hair and shit. Like they'd be like shaving people's legs and stuff. Like I didn't shave my legs in jail, but heaps of crew do. And they'd be like doing it, and it was just it was cool to witness, you know?
Yeah, that's actually really like, I had no idea. That's brilliant. I love that. Yeah. So, I don't know how we got to that, but that's awesome.
Yeah. So I think I answered mine. So now, Jake, what's yours?
I would say like the desire to be like there's no rules, but also to be rabbit. First off, I'll start with a quick story about how I kind of found my sexual energy. I was 19 and I met a 43-year-old tantric sex girl in Western Australia. Her name is
She knows.
Yeah, she knows. She knows. But like, I was very much a boy at the time. 19. I was such a
19, and she was 43.
43, and I was actually hooking up with her friend. And then one night I was like, oh God, she's just, because she was so beautiful, and she was a tantric sex teacher and a dancer, and was like a chiropractic doctor and like all sorts of stuff going on. So she was a very like strong, powerful woman, and I was like, wow, you know. And I kind of felt like there was no chance I could get with her. But one night we all just went out, and I was with her friend, and being 19, I was just like, I'm just going to try. So I ended up hooking up with her, and I went into bed with her and locked the door and turned the shower on the other room, like so bad. But anyway, I did it. And then we ended up hooking up, but I just went in for the straight jackhammer. Like, I had no idea what sex was. Like, before that, sex for me was to have sex with women and tell my friends that I had sex with women. That was it. It wasn't even a thing of like connecting. And she was like, oh my God, what the fuck are you doing? She's like, get off me. She's like, that's not, who are you? You know what I mean? And then she's like, all right, like, do you want to learn some things? And basically, long story short, for the next maybe 6 to 8 months, she taught me, like, we'd do like breath work before we'd hook up. And like she would sit on top of me with her legs wrapped around me, and we would just like circular breathe for like half an hour. And like, I was just like, what the fuck is this shit? And I was having like some pretty crazy experiences with that. So my desire, I would say, I have a lot of desires. Like, a lot of it's to be ravished. A lot of it's to be the ravisher. It's like, I'm definitely like powerful.
So you like to swap a little bit.
Yeah, I do. I like to be submissive, to the point of anything goes. You know what I mean? And then also the other way. Yeah. So, but yeah, like it's kind of, I don't know. Yeah. Am I going around the question?
That's so interesting.
That's good.
Yeah.
It sounds like you had somebody so safe to explore that with at such a young age.
Yeah.
As well.
Definitely.
To be 19 and to be discovering your eros and your sexual energy, and like, you know, learning to synchronize breath and like yumming and like all of that's like fucking wild for like a 19-year-old. And I love that so much. She was your initiator. She was like your Dakini.
Yeah. My biggest teacher, I would say, like sexually for sure. And even down to the way she'd talk about her vagina, she was like she did all this work to you know, liberate her vagina, because she had a lot of sexual trauma from being young, and she would use like yoni eggs and stuff, and she could like move that thing like a muscle. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, people aren't talking about this stuff, you know what I mean? So yeah, and it's cool. And even in my relationship now, like, we talk about this kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And I've always been like, always told her what I desire, and I feel like without that, like, you just kind of, you can hide very easily. And then you can see how it builds up, and you want more, or you want, you know?
Yeah.
When we cheat, you know, like when we can't express ourselves, our desires aren't being met, we're going to look elsewhere because we can't be people with our partner anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see it. Like, I know people where they barely have sex with their missus, and they're just together, and they're just on porn all the time. Like, there's on porn more than having sex with a girl, and the girl's right there. Like, and that, I can't relate to that. And, but I can see that's just one aspect of their life doing that. But I can see in all these other aspects of their life, they're making similar decisions in everything. In they're just not taking the leap and bringing it up, and they're not taking the leap in this, not taking the leap in this. It's like,
it's avoidance, right?
It's avoidance. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting, like in the work that I do now, we work with like a polarity framework essentially. So we work with masculine and feminine energy, and it's like 4 quadrants basically of different expressions of masculine and feminine energy. And some is healthy expressions, and then we have the unhealthy expressions. And so on one of the quadrants, we have like avoidance, anxiousness. So avoidance, don't know why that.
it liked it. Yeah.
It liked it. I haven't even finished yet. We have avoidance in the unhealthy masculine, anxiousness in the unhealthy feminine. And then to balance these energies, we need to step into a healthy expression of the masculine or feminine. And so to do that, for example, if we were feeling anxious, we need to go into the masculine to find where we can hold new boundaries, set new boundaries, take responsibility and hold space for ourselves. And we move out of the anxious energy in that way. And we can do this in relationship dynamics as well. And with avoidance, it would be learning to find freedom and trust in that relationship again, and within themselves. And so with polarity work, because I can hear you guys speaking a lot to masculine and feminine energies, when we work with polarity, we work with healthy and unhealthy shadow traits of polarity, of masculine and feminine. But like, I know this sounds a bit confusing, but we always have somewhere to move. So in that kind of relationship dynamic, we would be like working like with that person, your friend or whatever, to see where they can find freedom and trust within themselves and within their relationship and dynamic. And it kind of starts to move them out. Like, you know, you go deeper into it and you go into intention work, but it starts to move them out of that avoidant energy where they can then find responsibility for themselves and set new boundaries and hold space for themselves. So they're not stuck in that energy constantly. But yeah, you know, you see it in so many men in so many relationship dynamics where they just can't be fucked anymore because there's just spaces inside of themselves where they're just not willing to look. They're just not wanting to go there. And I mean, porn is the easiest option, isn't it? It's just activating the brain and having a physiological response of I mean, orgasm, but it's like a genital sneeze, really.
Yeah.
And saying that, I still watch porn, you know, I still watch porn occasionally, and there isn't shame around it, but it's definitely, I always watch porn when I'm trying to avoid something that I don't want to feel.
Yeah,
like,
it's so true, eh? I was speaking to my friend Nick Perry yesterday, and he was talking about how, especially in the masculine, we do avoid a lot, and like if something's triggering you, especially sexually or something like that, it's like it's really important to sit with that and go into that. He goes, because when you meditate and you go into that and you let it and you just keep focusing on it. Okay, what is that? Why am I afraid of that? Like trying to think of a good example. Like say jealousy. So say if you were jealous that your partners might be talking to some other guy, but the thought alone makes you want to look the other way. You know, I think it's so important to do a U-turn and come back to that and be like, okay, well, what is that? And often you'll see with jealousy, it's not feeling good enough. So it can be a lot of things, but for me it was when I was younger. But yeah, sitting with that and going, why the fuck am I so afraid of this feeling? Because it's a feeling, it's emotion, there's a belief behind it. And when you can sit with that, you can really, because the more you sit with it, the more it's like experience overcomes fear, and you start to go, okay, well, it's not that scary. It hasn't happened. You know, you can kind of evolve through it. Yeah.
Hearing this excites me to think about the evolution of men and women, like, because I look at school now, you know, thinking about like I forget all the shit I learned in school except my 12 times tables, and I just think like, imagine when we can hit them with obviously nutrition and the movement and stuff we're all into and all this psyche sort of stuff, but also once you hit that, like, you know, puberty sort of age, 16, 17, whatever, like no one talks about this. No one talks about it. People like you talk about this, and there's always going to be voices talking about this sort of stuff, and you and Juliet and other people in the field. But it's something we all have sex. Well, you'd hope so, right? We all have sex, and we can all relate, but we're never taught it. When besides put a condom on a banana when we're fucking 14, you know what I mean? It's as far as it goes. And the shame behind that is huge. Yeah. And the shame isn't really attached to men as much. The shame almost for a man is not getting it. If I was to reflect on it, it's like if you don't get sex, you're not procreating. Your bloodline's done.
Oh, okay. So so you mean as in like if you're not having sex, you feel like there's more shame for men?
Yeah, if you're not getting girls
in
like
the culture.
Really,
yeah, like in the culture of high school. That's what I think about.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's the way it was, like,
which was kind of rubbish.
Yeah, you don't want to be the virgin.
It's
like,
so confusing back then.
Yeah,
I actually thought I was gay until I was 14. I had a near rape experience from my best friend, and I just remember hiding behind the couch after and being like, "What the fuck? Like, am I gay?" Because I I've had all these feelings.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
and it's natural to have all of those feelings.
Yeah, and So then I got to 14 and I had my first sexual experience, and it was all wet and slippery and gross, and like I did too much, and I was like, oh well, that's not for me either. So like, am I gay? And then,
I remember thinking, oh, that was overrated.
yeah, true.
Yeah. And I remember actually like struggling to like put it in. I was like, fuck, is it here? Is it here? Because it was like pitch black, you know? So it was
going for the belly. Going for the belly.
Yeah, I was like in the belly. And I didn't even finish. I was like it couldn't even finish. And I was like, that didn't do it for me, right? But and then we talk about health, man, how when you were saying like early days when you were really unhealthy, and it's so common. Paul's video the other day, how guys will ejaculate super quick. And
fuck, I had that problem.
Yeah, and when you were like on sugar heaps and stressed out and whatnot, like, and then how did you conquer that?
2 duplex numbing gel condoms.
Oh, right.
Oh,
Seriously.
doesn't sound very holistic.
So
No, not back then.
this was when I was like friggin' 14
kid,
or 15. Like I just had no idea. And I was listening to Paul saying yesterday, like erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation is when you're too sympathetic, because parasympathetic keeps your erection. Sympathetic dominance actually makes you ejaculate. So I was way too sympathetic. So, and makes sense, right? Because I'm eating shit. I had Coca-Cola. I was eating KFC like almost every day. This was like until I was like 17, 16. I just would eat whatever I could. I had no money really. But yeah, it was just like so I guess to combat that, once I would say again, that sex teacher really showed me that.
Yeah,
like,
well, I was going to say that she would be teaching you how to breathe, right? And get you into
like,
parasympathetic.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, actually you can control this.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, fucking what have I been doing? Blowing it. And again, uneducated. And it goes back to that, what you guys are saying. It's like, it would be fucking amazing if you could teach this to people and just educate people at a younger age.
I used to have the opposite problem of not being able to finish when I first started having sex. Like for like the first probably 10 times I couldn't. And then because I was young and I was just drunk all the time, right? I was just, you only get sex at a party or something. And
and then it just like you're numbed out, right?
Numbed out, but I didn't realize that. And then I had sober sex and I was like, whoa, this is way better. And it was a perfect amount of time. And I realized I'm someone in control of when you want to like finish. And you know what I used to think about when I wanted to keep going was scaffolding.
Oh my God.
Because I used to be a scaffolder. So I'd be there and then all of a sudden I think about, chuck me a ledger. Like... and just take me out of it, but it works. It works.
Yeah, someone used to one of my exes always used to say dead puppies. Think about dead pup. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
fuck. That
one was dead.
Not gonna want to come.
Yours was dead cats.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, see, there you go.
Yeah.
But it's all from our brain, right? It's like
Yeah.
everything comes from that. The
Yeah.
arousal.
Yeah. So what about your experiences? Like, how did you find yourself in that style of work, and how did you find the transition out of that into what you're doing now, and sort of what got you into that, if you can reflect on your story?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've told this story quite a few times in different places lately, but so for me, it's interesting. So I always had a curiosity around sex, and I was always really sexual, like as a child and as a teenager, and quite promiscuous as a teenager. But I also had a lot of trauma in my childhood. So a lot of like unhealed, unresolved wounding with men, a really, really violent, fucked up father and all the things. So, I never had a very good masculine role model. And so I guess I started to develop quite a lot of resentment for men. And it was when I was so I was in fitness, actually. I was a PT and there was a Zumba instructor and all the things. And I remember I was working at Club Med in Lindeman Island at the time. And I was, teaching classes and training people and whatnot. But I was also sleeping with the manager of the place, and he was just fucking all of the girls and all of the things. And I have a very anxious style of attachment, and I still do. And, I'd fallen for him and, placed all of these fantasies and whatnot. And then, once again, I was just being fucked over by a guy. And I just started to develop this outlook around men that I just wanted to use them. And I just thought, fuck it. Like my sisters, I think, were both sex workers at the time as well, older than me, strippers and whatnot. And I was like, fuck it, that's the path that I'm going to go down. I'm going to be a stripper, moving to the Gold Coast, fuck this, fuck everyone. And I was just on a really destructive path. I was using a lot of drugs at the time. So I left that work. It didn't last for long anyway. And then I moved to the Gold Coast. I had no money, no nothing. Just in a really dark place. I was 19, and I started stripping at the Cabaret Club in Brisbane, doing like $5 lap dances.
I've been
just
there.
Completely burnt out. You guys really?
When I was like 18 or 19, I went there.
True. I went to Hollywood Showgirls.
Probably there at the same time.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Maybe. Yeah. I paid $5 too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was brilliant. All the like chairs around the outside of the room. And and I was just like I would have had like chronic fatigue like from all the trauma and everything I was doing to my body. I was just destroyed, worst anxiety, all of the things. And one of the girls, so I'm bisexual, and one of the girls that I was sort of seeing there, she kind of had her eye on me. I don't actually think I was seeing her, actually. I think she just had a bit of a crush on me. And her ex girlfriend was essentially like a madam, a pimp. Not a pimp, she was a madam, but she used to run girls. So she introduced me to her, and she was about 20 years older than me at the time. So I was 20, I think she was 40. And she was just glamorous and beautiful and amazing. And she had been a sex worker for a really long time and had been quite successful. And I became very, very close with her. And we sort of went on a bit of a partying spree for about a year, and she gave me a lot of jobs, and we just, we would tour to Sydney, and I would do a million bookings and not come out with a lot. Like I never got ahead, I was just in such a journey of self-destruct and anxiety, and just not knowing myself really, and not knowing what the fuck I was doing, but also realizing that there was so much shame within the industry at the time. Like, to tell anyone what I was doing, I would have rather killed myself. Like, I couldn't believe the steps that I'd taken and what I had done. I was now selling my body for sex. And at the same time, I also kind of just, there was like on a soul level, I just knew that this work was going to be what made me, what like, I guess, awakened me. There was just something that was going on inside of me. So I found this incredible spiritual teacher. I mean, it sounds like this was an easy journey. It was fucked. Like I was having panic attacks every day. I was smoking a lot of weed as well. So I had to get off everything, like cocaine, weed, prescription pills, just everything basically. And I got off everything, and I started working with this spiritual mentor, and she was amazing and helped me to start to see, these parts of myself that were very unresolved from childhood. And we're doing like a lot of DNA activation and all of these things that I had no idea what, like, it was very nuanced at the time. And now it's very mainstream. This is, 13, 14 years ago. And then I met someone on Facebook and I fell in love, and he was a lot older than me. He was about 40, and I moved to Melbourne to be with him. He put me through a lot, and it was a very unhealthy relationship because of my past, and I was having a lot of health issues as well. So I sort of started to get out and started to heal, and then I just went backwards and was in this relationship dynamic that was incredibly unhealthy, very narcissistic. I was very empathic, so of course there's the polarity, right? I wasn't finding my own selfishness in the relationship, so he was holding all of the narcissism. So I left, and I decided to start sex work again, but this time to come into it with my own brand, the brand that I developed towards the end, which was very, very successful. And I stepped into this work again with a new perspective. And I built a really great business, but it took a while to get there. And I saw the darkness of humanity. I saw a lot. It was wild. Like, I had some incredible experiences, and some of the most traumatic, worst experiences of my life. And in saying that, I stayed, and it was very lonely. I isolated myself for about 10 years. As I did this work, as I looked at these parts of myself that I felt were, unworthy of love, and and to be seen and in all of this. So it was a really interesting journey of like coming home to myself, but also this deep loneliness at the same time, because I didn't want anyone to know what I was doing. So I didn't have a lot of friendships, you know, I didn't have a relationship with my family. And yeah, it was a lot. And I, you know, did a lot of therapy and I worked with a lot of different modalities. And then I started to realize that it was all being held in my body. And, you know, the body keeps a score, as we know. And so that's when I started to journey into breath work. So something really traumatic happened in my family. It caused massive trauma, threw me really to the absolute edge, maybe 5 years ago, and I started to explore breath work, and then, you know, that changed my life in a lot of ways, you know, de-armoring stress and trauma from the body. And then I ended up doing a change with Awaken, became a facilitator in that, started working with women and sex workers, and started holding women's circles. And then I ended up exploring down the path of Kundalini and realizing that was like even a million times more powerful, and this is what I wanted to do. So then I did, you know, a few more years of study and became a facilitator in that. And then I realized that I couldn't do sex work anymore, and it was really time to leave. And I fell in love, and that was really hard, and it continues to be challenging in so many ways, because I'm learning my new identity and what it means to be Chelsea and not a sex worker anymore. And yeah, now I work with women. I have Rising Eros with my best friend, and we have, you know, weekly Kundalini activation and women's embodiment classes. We have workshops, we travel with it, we're building a facilitator training, and all of the things. So that's sort of where I'm at now.
Yeah. What a fucking journey. That's amazing. And it brings up this thing that Joe Rogan said the other day on his podcast. He's like, there's no one who's done anything fucking amazing in this world that hasn't had trauma. Or so, like, the more you're like a diamond, right? The more pressure you have built on you, the better diamond you are. And I just think life's so much like that. Like like God crushes those who need to teach the most, I think, sometimes, if you can make it out of it. And it seems like that's what you're doing, especially with just sounds so good. It feels so good to know that you're doing like shit around, you know, around this thing, but in the most positive way.
Yeah.
Now, and you've come out the other side of, you know, some trauma. It's awesome.
How'd you find opening it up, like telling all that to your current partner and whatnot, and how was that transition? Like, what was that like for you?
Look, continues to be a journey.
Yeah.
Challenging. I don't even know if it's a topic for this podcast, but it's been a lot. Falling in love while I was working was incredibly challenging, as you can imagine. And all of the feelings that come up, the big feelings that come up on both sides in that. And, you know, I think for me, I'm such a naturally monogamous person, and I only ever want to be with one person. So when I'm in love, like, I am devoted, and probably sometimes to my detriment. And that's something that I continue to need to look at, is where I can lose myself in love. Like, I guess when we speak about feminine, masculine polarity and dynamics, I definitely swing to like the extreme submissive, and I really enjoy that. But then also at the same time, I have dominant sides where, you know, I what I believe in, what I stand for, and who I am as a woman. So sometimes these parts of myself can be quite conflicting, and I've had to really revisit and really hold my inner child, you know, the little girl that exists inside of me within all of this, and within being in relationship and in love, because the parts of me when I was so young and so little seeked love in any degree. I would take anything that I could get. And because I was so anxiously attached, particularly to my mother, because my dad was so incredibly violent, you know, sexually abusive, you know, physically abusive. And so I always felt like my mum was going to die. And I still to that day have that core wound. So, you know, I can really relate that if I feel that love is being taken away, like I will grasp so tightly to that. So, you know, just being real on here, you know, I still have those wounds that come up inside of me as well. And then I'm also an incredibly strong, like liberated woman, and really deeply believe in what I'm doing in the world. So, you know, there's these vulnerable parts of me that I really need to hold tight, particularly, you know, in relating. Yeah.
Yeah, fully. There's a guy I spoke to the other day. Oh, all right, I forget his name now, but he said, yeah, he was really vulnerable about that. He's like, I'm teaching all of this stuff, and he's a really like, you know, masculine guy. He's actually talks about like spiritual sex as well, but and he was like, but he goes, I haven't got it all together. He's like, and I feel like there's so much power in being a teacher, and also saying, hey, I'm actually still learning. I don't have the answers. You know, it's so powerful, eh?
Yeah, for any modality.
It's so true. Honestly, this is such a big topic, and I think that like so much can be projected onto people that are like in leadership roles. But if we're not honest with ourselves, and we're not vulnerable, and we're not like going inside and doing the work, we're just going to be so deeply in our ego and feeling like we're holding so much, so we have to be fraudulent and false, and then that takes away from our work. It takes away from the work that we need to do on ourselves, because as you guys know, this is constant, like it never ends. And I mean, you can stay single for your whole life and really be the embodiment of whatever you're teaching. But I reckon when we're in relationships, either friendships, close friendships, like, you know, I mean, you guys, I'm sure you've had stuff come up in your broship over the years, and you know, intimate relationships, like we learn so much in relationship.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when you got your shit sorted,
It's the biggest teacher, eh?
Yeah.
And then you get in a relationship and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Jake, what is that?
Because Jake sort of told, like, I'd say I had my first relationship, whatever, a few years ago now, and like proper relationship. And I remember thinking at the start, I'm fully in my power, like, and it was just sort of like I wasn't super in, but I was, you know, I was loyal. And and then Jake was like, yeah, just be careful. Like, you know, it's like when you're in the bucket, you can't see out of the bucket, you know? And then it fully happened, eh? You start to slowly like lose yourself, especially when there's like something happens and something pulls you apart. There's like this, you can't try and pull it back together. It's like it's really hard to explain, but I learned so much about myself in that, and what not to do and what to do. And it gave me a lot of confidence, actually. When we broke up, it gave me a lot of confidence. At the start, it didn't. There's a month there where you're like, you feel it, but then it's like it comes back twice to where you were. And I was like, fuck, this is amazing. This is what it's all about. Like, this is going through things. Eh? Yeah, you become way more powerful. And you just, it's nice when you move through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And where do you feel now where you're at things? Like what did you learn about yourself the most in that relationship?
I learned that if I feel any type of hurt, I retract, I pull back. Yeah. I'll just like ghost. So avoidance. Yeah. And that would be my way of just making them feel the same way. You know what I mean? Of like, I don't need you, you know, that sort of feeling. And it also showed me that, I can do this all with or without someone. That gave me power, like, of what I want to do. And it's sort of like my head is really into what I want to do in life at the moment, not so much relationship. I know that'll come along perfectly at the right time. I trust in the universe, like I really do. But in my head, it's all about corrective culture right now and business. And I'm happy. I want it to be about that now, you know, because I know. And
you're building, right? Like I heard someone say something the other day, it was really interesting about a man. I mean, we know this, but it's just affirmed it is like, you know, when a man is in his purpose and he's doing his building, he needs to do that before in being in a relationship. Like
that's where I feel.
Purpose.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be ready for kids or anything until everything's set, you know? And that's, it feels nice. It feels like we're on our path. I do feel like we're on our path.
I love that
and without a doubt in the world too, you know, it's nice. And I know not a lot of people can say that, you know, and that's why we bring out that king and queen product, to that bring that archetype to men to relate to, and for women, you know, that king and queen archetype, and for us as a reminder to keep pulling ourselves in, because we got to rep it, you know, if we're selling it there.
Archetypal work is brilliant. We work with the archetypes in our business, in Rising Eros. Like we work with the feminine archetypes of wild woman, slut, erotic mother, and a few more, like the maiden, inner child, and priestess. And these archetypes are so important to like bring back these parts of ourselves and remind ourselves of all of these different types of essences that we hold within. So yeah, I love that you work with them. That's so cool.
Yeah, in the check stuff, you write down your 3 most dominant archetypes, and then you reflect on it and see where you're playing it positively or negatively, or, you know. So last time we did it, I was the teacher, student, and warrior. Wonder what I'd be at now. And when the transition is right, we want to go into that king archetype. But
yeah,
what would you say yours is at the moment, Jake? You're very much like the philosopher.
Have you got like the magician as well? I don't know the
just any of them, right?
All
like,
of them.
It's just whatever character you want to say. Yeah.
I'd say like seeker.
Yeah. 100%.
Seeker.
You're the seeker.
I'm very much on a journey into the. I want to just learn. I just want to evolve in this life. Like my whole purpose right now as feels growing this business, of course, but also like these conversations are important to me, and these like and not just with you, but with people that want to connect on that level and speak the truth for some reason. I just, as soon as someone starts talking truth to me, I'm just like, my heart just lights up, and I just want to like seek more of that, and that brings me happiness and purpose deep down, like on a soul level. So I don't know.
What about yourself? What's your dominant archetypes at the moment? Because we all transition through these. What would you say?
Oh, right now, this week, today. Yeah, I would say maiden. Like I'm really feeling my little girl at the moment. I'm moving through a lot of things, and she's feeling super sensitive. So I feel like I'm swinging between maiden and like soothing myself with like the erotic mother, and really coming between those two to find balance and truth within what I'm currently moving through. But yeah, depends. As you guys said, it's always changing. But today I'm feeling maiden a lot.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes. Someone said yesterday, they're like, oh, what are we talking about? Like, who are you? And he was like, I don't know. Like every day I feel like I'm somebody different. And it's like, that's what, like, cause we're always, I think someone said like, you're not the same. It's not the same river. You're not the same man. You can never be who you were yesterday.
Yeah.
So
and that's growth, baby.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's fun.
I actually wrote down, I wanted to talk on it. Like, you're not the same person you were 10 years ago. And when I see people get judged, like say celebrities on the internet for something they said on a video 10 years ago, and it brings up now, it's like, fuck, that's wild that can happen now, only because of video. Otherwise their life would be peace. Because there's a video, I'm saying, imagine if they caught the shit we were saying when like fucking even 2 years ago. You know?
Yeah,
like,
fuck.
Like in trading.
That's so true.
Yeah, like, because when I used to scaffold, right, the culture of women is crazy in the construction industry. And I remember being disgusted in it while I was there, because it's all these guys that don't get laid are the ones saying it, right? Yeah. So, and it's because it's like the way they talk about it, and it was like, just, how can I describe it? It was just the worst shit, eh? And I was like, man, don't you have a mother?
Yeah, we had a cleaner when I rented when I was 18. I rented for like 6 months, and there's this cleaner coming in, and she was like, okay, like looking wise, but these guys were just like, fucking just like, what are you doing after work? Just like playing this game, and it was just like, I just couldn't believe it.
You realize it would have been savage being a girl from the beginning of time, eh? Yeah. Like wars and like caveman days. Like if you want a chick in the caveman days, you got to kill the man and take her. You know, that's the way it was.
Yeah.
Like, and then they would have to go with him because that's how you survive. And it's this whole thing is in our genetics, which makes me think like how much of our genes from our ancestors are in us and traits. Because if you look at a dog, they do the same shit as the mum, whether they've met that mum or not. You know what I mean? Like pitties are generally going to be a bit more violent. Vistas are going to start sniffing out. Like, and that's just in their genetics. Yeah. So I wonder how much of like our mum, our dad, and their traits are a genetic thing that's actually in us, and how much we need to go in to actually change that, If
Yeah.
it's nature or nurture, a bit of both, you know?
Yeah. Do you think that's why we're here, Chelsea? Like, do you think that's why we're meant to heal our parents, you know, things?
Well, it's
to
like
grow?
epigenetics, right?
Yeah.
Like we can change things constantly. Like we're always changing things, and like, you know, neuroplasticity and everything's always
Totally.
changing, whether we've got the consciousness to choose whether we want to change it or not. Like, you know, I look at my father and my mother and I know that I definitely don't want to be like them, but I definitely feel the traits that come through. And isn't it funny, because if we don't consciously choose to change, we do end up like our parents.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you see those traits in a family member and you're like, fuck, you were just like fucking our father or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I believe that you've got something to work with in that. Like, I believe that you can turn that into gold and you can truly transmute anything that you want to, whether you bring conscious awareness to it or not.
Yeah.
That's
What you wanna
evolution.
fight for. At the end of the day, it's evolution. Like nothing can stay the same. Consciousness will continue to expand. And if it doesn't expand, it dies. Like it literally cannot exist anymore.
Yeah. And that's why we need to die.
I mean,
Yeah, that's why death needs
and
to
then, you know,
happen.
our soul goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that like, yeah, I mean, this is why we're here, right? To keep expanding and keep changing and keep moving more into love and awareness and we just, but if we don't look at our darkness, then we can't do that. We just can't. We can't change things anymore. We get stuck.
If you have one piece of advice to tell the listeners, whether that be male, female, what would that be? What was a big thing for you, or what's a message you'd like to give to them?
Don't be afraid to feel. Your feelings are your superpower, whether you're a man or a woman. Yeah, you're worthy of love, no matter what your story. But first of all, you have to give that love to yourself. Yeah.
Nice.
That was great. That was great. That was like so fitting for the podcast too. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like, and that's what it is. It's all about liberation. When you say don't be afraid to feel, like, do you think of feelings as a guide to awareness, or when you say that, what do you mean?
So working in the feeling field now, I realized that I probably wasn't as good at feeling as I could be. And so when we work with feminine energy, you have feminine energy inside of you, I have feminine energy inside of me, it's feeling based and intuition based. And so when we speak of embodiment, we're embodying the feeling that we're currently feeling so we can move through it and we can learn from our bodies. And obviously you guys work with the body, so you understand this, right? Like we have to be in our bodies to feel what is happening. And what we do so much of is we're in the mental realm all the time. We're overthinking, we're thinking, we're trying to think our ways to make sense of things, and we're trying to think our ways of how to feel. And we forget that our intuition is within our body. And that's obviously why it's so important, why we have to deal with trauma, and we have to essentially, you know, disarm trauma, de-arm trauma from the body. So we can get out of these stress responses that we're just consistently in. But when we start to, for example, come out of a freeze response, which is inherently what most women are in, actually, when they can't feel anything anymore. When we start to bring ourselves into our feeling body, we start to connect with our intuition and what our hearts really want. So sorry, wait a second. What was the initial question?
What was it?
I was talking about, like, when you talk about feelings, is like, are feelings used as a guide for the awareness, or are feelings truth, or, you know, like, can you trust your feelings?
So sorry, I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
we need to feel so we can move through things, but we also need to feel so we can come back to our truth and our awareness and our sovereignty in each moment. And so we can collapse under our feelings because we can become so scared that if we feel, we will become stuck in this feeling forever and it will never change. But feelings, emotion, energy in motion needs to move through for things to expand and change once again. You know, if we're feeling deep grief, but we're actually not feeling it because we refuse to feel it, because we think we're going to be stuck there, we're going to armor up with something else, which will probably be numbness on top of that, because our body's sort of going into a freeze response anyway. So, you know, we're defrosting these feelings and letting ourselves feel the depths of the grief, and the grief reminds of us how much we loved in those moments. And then under the grief is the love, and then we come back to our sovereignty of, I feel this because I love so deeply, and we come back to our hearts again, and we come back to our truth. But if we don't feel, we're just walking, we're just bobbleheads, we're just walking around thinking ourselves through life.
And is that the similar advice you give? Like, what advice would you give someone that's going through a breakup, like a fresh breakup? Do you have like a gem of wisdom for those people currently in the fire?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember that love doesn't leave. And just because it feels so raw and so painful, that love is there for you, and the pain that you feel reminds you of the capacity, makes me want to cry, to feel. But also, heartbreak will always show you how deeply that you've loved. The deeper that you hurt, the more that you've loved. And that means that you can love like that again. You can love even deeper again. So the depths of the love that we feel is the depths of the love that we will be able to expand on in the future. And the reason why you feel this pain now is because you have so much inside of you that is love. Give it to yourself. When you miss them, remind yourself that yes, you may miss them, but you miss you. I miss you. Reverse everything back. I miss them. I miss me. And bring everything, all of that goodness back to you every day. But also, you know, no pressure. There's no time frames. Like, things will get easier. Time does heal as long as you're willing to look at the parts of yourself that perhaps are needing to be looked at, you know, the parts that you've self-abandoned. And, you know, you can bring these new energies into a new relationship in healthier ways. But, you know, just to remember that, yeah, the deeper the break means the deeper the love that was felt. And that means that your capacity of love is expanding.
Nice.
That's amazing.
What's that Ram Dass quote, man? He says, like, when you keep your heart open.
Oh, it's all about keeping your heart open in hell. When you can learn how to do that, because most people will shut their heart down as soon as they feel anything. But I've used that so much. Like, keep your heart open in hell. When you're feeling suffering, there is grace and there is growth. Even if it's a little bit of suffering, you can be sure that you're growing. So keep your heart open. And that's the trick. If you can be going through a breakup and suffering, but keeping your heart open towards them and everything around you. I mean, I'm not there yet, but
yeah, and it's powerful doing that, eh? Like,
I mean, I'm not there yet either. Like, but it's beautiful to remember that. And I think when you hear that, it's like we have that visceral understanding of what that could feel like, though,
fully,
you know. And I
hey.
think we've all had experiences where we withdraw love.
Absolutely.
When that person is either pulling away or hurting us. You know, we're like, fuck you. I'm never, you know, how many times, especially when we were young, like, I'm never fucking opening my heart again to anyone. I'll never do this again.
Yeah.
But then we do it again.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're here to do, is to love.
And I'm sure in like relationships, I'm sure they'll hit home with a few people, is like, when you withhold love from your partner because you're angry at them, you're actually hurting yourself. And you do so much. Like, if you're just like, fuck you then, fuck this, I'm over it, blah, 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 because you're emotional at the time or whatever, you're actually hurt so much. Whereas though, if you sat down and you said, I'm actually feeling this way right now, I'm struggling, it just frees you. It sets you free, and you don't close your heart down, and you actually evolve, because otherwise you just kind of like, you just shut everything off and you go away and you feel stew on it and you feel toxic, when it can be the optimal decision is to move through it instead of shut it.
And
go the other way.
that was how I felt when I used to ghost. Like if someone did something, I'd feel like that, and I'd just do it till I didn't care anymore, you know. But but that took a while, and then you're just thinking about it like for the whole day. But I was aware of that. As soon as I did that too, I remember being aware of that, and I was like, I'm not going to do that again. You know?
Fuck. It's like online when someone like cooks you online. Like sometimes we get people that will just spray us for no reason online. Like what did I get called the other day? A tattoo, a guy with tattoo, a nerd with tattoos is still a nerd. And I think that like you just want to like. I just want to be like,
you want to go through the screen, you want to fucking headbutt him.
Yeah, you're like, you want to fucking come up here and say that to my fucking face. You know what I mean? And then like if you say anything, it doesn't even matter if it's a little sly emoji or whatever. You stew on it. Yeah. Whereas if you just leave it, I don't even think about it. It's just I find it funny after a few hours.
And they don't get their dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And apparently that's what Human Lab talks about it. He goes, you don't respond because they get dopamine when you respond. And that's their excitement in their life, obviously, because they're posting this shit, you know?
One more thing I was going to say, actually, to touch on the love part is like when in conflict. I mean, I definitely haven't mastered this part either in myself, in personal relationships, but I try. Is that, you know, when you and your partner are being triggered and, you know, you're in this really reactive response, can you see each other and communicate with each other as 4-year-old children? Because that's the part of the brain that's, you know, being active.
Fuck, that's good.
Yeah, isn't that good? So it's like when you see your partner popping off and they're fucking jealous and they're losing their minds, you're like, what the fuck did you do? You know, can you communicate with them like they are a 4-year-old child? It's just hard when you're both triggered. Like it's weird.
That's fuck yeah, but that's so true.
Go away, regulate, come back.
A few months ago, I was out in the front lawn smashing my guitar like a fucking baby. And I was like, what the fuck come over me? It was like the universe set me up. I'd fasted for 2 days.
Like smashing your guitar like that, like breaking it?
Yeah, on the ground, yeah, because I was triggered in my relationship. And
yeah. And I mean, it's a way to yum some anger.
It was an old guitar and I kind of wanted a new one. Like I had that in the back of the head too. I just wanted to, I wanted to make her, I wanted her to understand how hurt I was at the time. Yeah. And she didn't. She's like, I grew up, you fuck baby.
That's what she said.
I respected her so much more for it too.
So funny.
She was like, you're carrying on like a baby. I was like, oh, damn it.
Yeah. I've been known to do very similar.
Well, thanks for coming on. It was a great chat. Didn't even know where we were going to get to, but it was a good conversation.
Yeah, and
I really enjoyed talking to you guys. You both are so fucking cool, and I love seeing conscious men.
Yeah, fuck yeah. We'll have to keep in touch, eh? And if you if people want to work with you and they want to join your is it Eros? Is it?
Yeah, so I work with women one-on-one, and you can just follow me on Instagram, Chelsea_Kundalini, I think. I can't actually remember my Instagram.
Pop up. Yeah.
I think it's that.
And then Rising Eros is the business that I have with my best friend, and we work with groups of women, Rising_Eros. And yes, and we do Kundalini activation, women's embodiment, and Kundalini bodywork, and various different types of breath work.
Yeah, let's get you on again in a year or something, and we'll fucking in 6 months or whenever.
Yeah, why a year? That's ages away.
yeah. Why a year? I don't know why I said a year.
Yeah. The year goes quick, but you'll be like, "Fuck, it's been a
year."
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. Love your energy.
Much love. Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, bye guys. Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
Catch you soon.
Bye.